Take a look at the world map you've known your entire life. It feels factual, objective, and almost unquestionable. But what if the map you trust the most isn't telling the truth? Why does Greenland look almost as large as Africa? Why does Europe feel so central? And if we know these maps are wrong, why do we keep using them anyway? Are world maps lying to us, or is the truth more complicated than that? Stay with us, and by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why every world map distorts reality, and what that says about how we see our world.
This is the Mercator projection. It is, without question, the most influential world map ever created. It hangs in classrooms, appears in news graphics, and quietly defines how billions of people imagine Earth. On this map, Russia dominates the north like a giant, Greenland looks comparable in size to Africa, and Europe appears far larger and more central than you might expect. At first glance, it feels completely normal. The shapes of countries look right. Brazil looks like Brazil. Angola looks like Angola. And that sense of familiarity is one of the main reasons the Mercator map became so popular. So how did we end up with a map that gets something so fundamental so wrong? To answer that, we need to go back nearly 500 years. The Mercator projection was originally created for one specific purpose: navigation. It keeps directions consistent, which was crucial at a time when sailors relied almost entirely on a compass to cross vast oceans. On this map, drawing a straight line between two locations gives you the precise compass bearing needed to travel between them. Gerardus Mercator achieved this in the 16th century by spacing latitude lines farther apart as they move away from the equator and straightening them into a grid of right angles. This mathematical trick allowed directions to remain accurate, but it also introduced a serious trade-off. That trade-off appears in how the map represents size. Africa and Greenland, for example, look roughly similar on the Mercator map, even though Africa is actually about 14 times larger. If you were to project identical points from a globe onto a Mercator map, those points would keep their shape but steadily grow in size as they approach the poles. The core issue is simple and unavoidable. The Earth is a sphere, and a sphere cannot be flattened without distortion. Imagine peeling an orange and trying to lay the peel flat on a table without tearing it. No matter how carefully you try, something has to stretch, rip, or warp. Maps work the same way. To flatten the Earth, cartographers must choose what to preserve and what to sacrifice. Mercator chose to preserve direction. The price was size. As you move away from the equator, land masses stretch dramatically. The closer you get to the poles, the more extreme the distortion becomes. At this point, you might be wondering something important. If the Mercator map distorts size so badly, why not just switch to a different one? The answer is that we already have, and for centuries, cartographers have been experimenting with dozens of radically different ways to represent our planet. Some of them look familiar, others look completely alien. There are projections that split the world into flower-like shapes, breaking the oceans apart to keep land masses accurate. There are circular maps that make the Earth look like it's being viewed from space. If you dig deep enough, there's even a projection for the flat Earth theory, usually showing the world as a giant disk with Antarctica conveniently reimagined as an endless ice wall wrapped around the edge. Each of these maps tells a different story. Some projections prioritize shape, making continents look familiar, even if their sizes are wrong. Others preserve distance or direction, which is crucial for navigation. And some focus entirely on area, sacrificing visual comfort to show the true proportions of the world. This is why no single map can ever be the correct one. Every projection answers a different question. There's also no scientific reason why north must be at the top of a map. That's a human convention, not a law of nature. Flip the world upside down, and nothing about the geography becomes less accurate, yet the emotional impact changes instantly. Africa feels dominant. South America commands attention. Europe suddenly feels smaller and more distant. We instinctively associate up with importance and down with inferiority, even though the planet itself has no top or bottom. The same effect happens when we change the center of the map. Place the Americas in the middle, and Europe shifts to the edge, geographically unchanged, yet psychologically diminished. Maps don't just show the world, they frame it. As awareness of these distortions grew, cartographers began searching for a map that felt more honest, one that didn't exaggerate some regions while shrinking others into obscurity. One of the most well-known attempts is the Gall-Peters projection. This map preserves area, meaning every country appears in its true relative size. Africa finally looks massive, Greenland shrinks to its proper scale, and the imbalance of the Mercator projection becomes impossible to ignore. The problem, however, is that the shapes of continents become heavily stretched, making the map difficult to read and visually uncomfortable for many viewers. But more recently, a new contender entered the scene. This is the Equal Earth projection. Unlike earlier area-preserving maps, Equal Earth was designed not just to be mathematically fair, but also visually appealing. It keeps the correct relative sizes of continents and countries while maintaining shapes that feel familiar and natural. Africa appears as large as it truly is. South America no longer feels secondary, and Europe settles into a more realistic scale without dramatic distortion. What makes Equal Earth especially interesting is that it was created specifically as a response to the dominance of the Mercator projection. Its goal is not navigation but understanding. It doesn't preserve direction, and it can't be used for precise measurements, but it offers one of the most balanced visual representations of our planet available today. In the modern era, we rarely navigate using maps in the traditional sense. Instead, we depend on algorithms. Services like Google Maps and GPS can calculate routes across the globe in seconds, adjusting constantly in real time. The map is no longer doing the navigating, the software behind it is. And it's easy to forget just how recent this shift really is. Google Maps is only around 20 years old. Before that, even long journeys depended on paper maps, local knowledge, and a lot of uncertainty. Because of this shift, maps now serve a very different purpose. They are no longer about navigation, they are about representation. They hang on walls, appear in classrooms and videos, and shape how we imagine the world far more than how we move through it. And that is why distortions matter more than ever. There is no perfect flat map of the Earth. Every projection makes a trade-off. Some preserve direction, some preserve size, some preserve shape, but none can preserve everything at once. The only representation that truly shows the planet as it is remains the simplest one, a globe. It's impractical, impossible to fold, and useless for navigation. But it doesn't lie. And once you understand that, you realize something important. World maps were never meant to be the truth. They are interpretations. And the moment you understand how they shape your perception, you finally start seeing the world as it really is. If you enjoyed this video and you're looking for a cool map to hang on your wall, you might also like what I create outside of YouTube. I design detailed, carefully crafted map prints, and you'll find a link to my map shop in the description below. And if this video changed how you look at world maps, don't forget to give it a like. It really helps the channel reach more people who love geography as much as we do. Subscribe if you want more videos like this, because there are plenty more mind-bending map stories still to explore. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.